American Motors was the underdog, fighting to survive while giants like Ford and Chevrolet ruled the roads. Out of that struggle came something bold, the 1971 AMC Javelin AMX, a muscle car like no other. And these are the 10 shocking secrets about this forgotten legend that will leave you stunned. Number 1, the AMC Javelin was designed to take on the Ford Mustang. In the year 1964, the Ford Mustang rolled onto the scene and changed everything. It was fast, stylish, and made young drivers feel like rock stars. Other car companies saw how popular it became and rushed to build their own pony cars. But one company, AMC, American Motors Corporation, was not known for making fun, fast cars. They built safe and quiet family cars. That was about to change. A new man came to AMC named Robert Beverly Evans. He had a big idea. Let's make a car that young people actually want. A car that doesn't just sit in the driveway. It moves, it growls, it turns heads. And most of all, it would go head-to-head with the famous Ford Mustang. This was a bold idea, especially because AMC wasn't one of the big 3 car companies like Ford, Chevrolet, or Dodge. AMC was the small kid on the block, but they were ready to fight. In the year 1966, AMC showed off a wild-looking concept called the AMX. People loved it. So AMC got to work turning that idea into 2 real cars, the Javelin and the AMX. But they had one shot to get it right. Their last sporty car, the Marlin, didn't do well. So everything was riding on the Javelin. By the year 1968, the AMC Javelin was ready for the road. It had 4 seats, stylish lines, and a low price. People who wanted something different from the usual Mustang or Camaro started paying attention. AMC didn't just build another muscle car, they built something bold and fresh. It was a statement from a company that refused to be left out. The Javelin wasn't just about looking cool, it was smartly designed with performance in mind. It had a wide stance, low body, and aggressive lines that made it look fast even when it wasn't moving. Inside, it had sporty details and just enough space for passengers to enjoy the ride. It wasn't a copy of the Mustang, it was AMC's answer to it. And the answer was strong. Drivers liked how the Javelin handled. It was quick, but it was also balanced. It felt different from the big-name muscle cars. It felt like something new. AMC had created a car that could finally stand out, not just because it was different, but because it was good. Even though AMC didn't have the biggest budget or flashiest ads, the Javelin started to earn respect. It gave drivers an alternative to the usual choices. It told the world that you didn't have to be the biggest company to build a serious car. Number 2, Pierre Cardan designed its interior. This shocking thing about the AMC Javelin AMX made it stand out from all the rest. It wasn't just fast, it was fashionable. A world-famous fashion designer helped make it that way. His name was Pierre Cardan, and he wasn't from Detroit or Wisconsin. He was from France, the home of fashion, fancy clothes, and world-famous style. Cardan was not just any designer. He dressed movie stars, made furniture, decorated homes, and even designed airplanes. So why would someone like Pierre Cardan want to design the inside of a muscle car? Because AMC dared to ask him in the early 1970s, AMC wanted to do something very different. They were a small car company trying to stand out against giants like Ford and Chevrolet. Instead of just making louder engines or wilder paint jobs, they decided to bring fashion into the driver's seat, literally. That's when they called up Pierre Cardan and said, "Would you like to design the interior of our Javelin?" He said yes. The result was like nothing anyone had ever seen before in a car. Starting in the year 1972, the Pierre Cardan package was offered for the Javelin SST. Even though the Javelin AMX didn't get it directly in the year 1971, it shared the same body style and design. That makes this stylish surprise a true part of the Javelin's identity. And what Cardan created was wild. Instead of plain black seats or boring gray fabric, the Pierre Cardan interior came with bold, colorful stripes. Imagine stepping into a car and seeing thick waves of white, silver, purple, and orange flowing across deep black seats. These bright stripes curved across the door panels and even over the headliner, the ceiling of the car. It didn't look like any car interior. It looked more like a space-age lounge, or maybe a stylish living room on wheels. Pierre Cardan once said, "People should feel like they're sitting in a living room instead of sitting in a machine." And that's exactly what the Javelin's interior felt like. Soft vinyl seats, shiny stripes, and spacey patterns made the car feel more like a fashion studio than a race-ready ride. But here's another surprise. It only cost $85 to add the Pierre Cardan package when it first came out. That's right. For less than $100, drivers could turn their pony car into a rolling piece of fashion history. The special interior was offered in only 2 model years, 1972 and 1973, and only on the Javelin SST. Just under 3,000 cars were made with a Cardan interior, making it a rare and exciting treasure for car lovers today. Even the outside of the car could be matched to Cardan's vision. Drivers could choose fancy colors like Trans Am Red, Stardust Silver, Snow White, or Wild Plum to go with the stylish interior. The Cardan edition also came with special badges on the outside, letting everyone know this wasn't just any Javelin, it was a designer Javelin. The inside wasn't just stylish, it was also full of new ideas. The seats came with a special coating to stop stains, something brand new for cars back then. But this made the seats slippery, so drivers had to be careful not to slide around when they turned a corner. The gear shift even had a grab handle, just in case. Driving it felt like being part of a fashion show and a car chase at the same time. Today, cars often come with designer logos or luxury interiors, but back then, this was revolutionary. AMC was the first to say, what if a car could be both powerful and stylish? The Pierre Cardan Javelin proved that it could. Even more amazing, AMC did all of this during a time when they were up against huge car companies with way more money. Yet they took a chance, called a French fashion genius, and created something totally new. So it said that a car could be beautiful inside and out, that it could be strong and soft, that muscle cars didn't have to be all about roaring engines and dark leather. Sometimes they could be purple and silver, with soft vinyl and a touch of Paris flair. Number 3, the first police pony car. Back when muscle cars were everywhere, police departments across the country got worried. Their old sedans just weren't fast enough to catch these powerful cars. The police in Alabama were the first to find a solution. They tested several muscle cars, believe it or not. The first pony car ever used by police officers in the United States was not a Mustang, not a Camaro, and not a Charger. It was the 1971 AMC Javelin AMX because it had great speed, strong performance, and a good price. At that time, most police cars were big, heavy sedans. They were strong but slow, and they had a hard time catching the new wave of fast muscle cars flying down highways. Some drivers thought they could outrun the law, and sadly, they often could. So the police needed something different, something faster, something with muscle, and Alabama was the first to do it. Here's how it all went down. The Alabama Department of Public Safety was looking for patrol cars, but they didn't have a lot of money. The big brands like Ford and Chevrolet were too expensive. Then came a clever idea from an AMC dealer in Alabama. He said, why not try a Javelin? It was bold. Nobody had ever used a pony car like that for police work before, but they gave it a shot. First, the police tested a simple Javelin with a small V8 engine, but it was not fast enough. So AMC gave them something better, a Javelin AMX with a huge 401 cubic inch V8 engine. This time it was fast, really fast. The police officers were shocked. They had never driven anything like it. Suddenly, no one could get away from them. Also, Alabama ordered 132 of these amazing Javelin AMX cars for their state troopers. This made history. It was the first time a pony car, a sporty, powerful car built to go fast, was used by law enforcement. The sight was wild, a sleek 2-door speed machine painted with police decals and topped with flashing lights. People did double takes when they saw one on the road. But these cars were not just cool looking. They worked. Officers used them in real high-speed chases. There are reports of these Javelins chasing down cars going over 150 miles per hour. In one case, a trooper raced a Chevrolet with a 454 engine, one of the fastest cars around. and still caught it in just 6 minutes. That Javelin flew down the highway like a rocket. One of the most fun and shocking stories comes from those wild police chases. Some troopers would drive up to local car races, smile, and challenge racers with a laugh. "If you can outrun me, I'll let you go." But nobody ever won. The Javelins were too fast. They turned the tables on street racers and made sure that law and order had the fastest wheels on the road. Even though these cars were fast, they weren't that different from the Javelins you could buy at a dealership. Sure, they had police radios, sirens, and special lights, but under the hood, not much was changed. That's what made it so cool. These were almost the same Javelins that any car lover could dream of owning. One fun detail: the rear spoiler wasn't for speed, it was used to write "State Trooper," big and bold, so no one could miss it. Sadly, after a few years, the police went back to using larger, more typical patrol cars. The Javelins had trouble on gravel roads and wore out tires fast, but for a short time they ruled the roads like no other. Today, finding one of those 132 Javelin police cars is like finding treasure. Most of them had tough lives chasing down lawbreakers and moonshine runners. Very few are still around. Others, like one found in Texas recently, are being restored to their former glory. People who know cars understand how special these police Javelins really were. Number 4, the Javelin was a true racing machine. What most people don't know is that this cool car wasn't just made for the streets. It was built to win on the racetrack. And even though AMC was a smaller car company with fewer resources than the big guys like Ford and Chevrolet, they didn't let that stop them. Instead, they did something bold that shocked the racing world. At first, people laughed when AMC entered the racing world. AMC was known for building budget-friendly cars, not high-speed champions. They didn't have much money, and they didn't have a big racing team. Still, they wanted to prove something. They wanted to show that their new pony car, the Javelin, had the heart of a champion. Now here comes the twist. AMC made a huge move. They convinced one of the most famous names in racing, Roger Penske, to join their team. Penske had worked with Chevrolet before and even owned a Chevrolet dealership. But after feeling let down by Chevy, he shocked everyone by jumping ship to team up with AMC. That was like a top basketball player leaving the Lakers to join a small-town team. Nobody saw it coming. Penske brought with him a team of top drivers, including the talented Mark Donohue. These weren't just drivers, they were winners. Together, they worked with AMC to make the Javelin AMX into a real race machine. The team made big changes to the car. They improved the body, the airflow, and the way it handled on sharp turns. Even the front grille was changed to help the wind move around the car better, all thanks to Donohue's smart suggestions. For the 1971 racing season, the Javelin AMX got even better. AMC gave it a full-width fiberglass hood and added spoilers in the front and back. Spoilers are not just for looks, they help keep the car stable at high speeds. In testing, the rear spoiler added more than 100 pounds of downforce. That meant the car could grip the track tightly and stay in control, even during intense racing. When the races began, people didn't expect much from AMC. The company had always been seen as the underdog, a small fish in a big pond. But that's what made what happened next so amazing. The Javelin AMX didn't just compete, it won. It didn't happen right away, but when the wins started coming, people started paying attention. In that racing season, Penske had bet on the car winning at least 7 races. While they didn't quite reach that number, they did win 3 big ones. And more importantly, they kept proving that the Javelin could race with the best. Even before 1971, the Javelin had shown signs of greatness. Back in 1968, during its very first year in racing, the Javelin became the only production car to finish every single race it entered in the Trans Am series. That had never been done before. It earned the car a new kind of respect and gave AMC the courage to push even harder. By the time the 1971 model rolled in, the Javelin AMX was being called the closest thing you can buy to a Trans Am champion. That wasn't just a slogan, it was true. The Javelin had become a serious threat on the racetrack. It had gone from being a budget car built by a small company to a full-on racing machine backed by one of the best teams in motorsports. What makes this story so shocking is how AMC, with so little money and not much racing history, managed to shake up the racing world. And with the help of Penske, Donahue, and a whole lot of determination, the 1971 AMC Javelin AMX became a real winner. Number 5, designed by a legend, Dick Teague. Did you know the bold, wide, and powerful look of the 1971 AMC Javelin AMX was crafted by a man who once acted in silent films and Our Gang comedies as a girl? That's right. One of America's wildest-looking muscle cars was designed by Dick Teague, a man with one eye and a whole lot of creativity. Let's take a closer look at this shocking secret: how one designer, working with less money and fewer resources than the big car companies, still made a car that stood out in every way. Dick Teague wasn't born into the car world. He grew up in Los Angeles, where his mother was an actress in silent movies. Young Dick even did a bit of acting himself. But everything changed when a serious car accident injured one of his eyes for life. Did that stop him? Not even close. Instead, he turned his focus to design and started sketching airplanes and fast cars. Now, here's where the real magic begins. Dick Teague didn't work for the biggest car company. He worked for AMC, American Motors Corporation, a smaller brand with way less money than giants like Ford or Chevrolet. But what AMC had was something better: Dick's imagination. And when AMC needed a new muscle car, one that could turn heads and grab attention on the streets and racetracks, they gave Teague the job, and wow, did he deliver. The 1971 Javelin AMX looked like nothing else on the road. Forget flat sides and plain shapes, Teague gave this car muscles, literally. He added front fender blisters, which looked like bulging biceps right over the wheels. The body was longer, wider, and lower than the older model. It stretched out with an elegant front nose and a short, tight rear. This made it look fast, even when it was standing still. One of the biggest surprises? The Javelin's roof spoiler was built right into the body. That was rare back then. Most cars had spoilers that stuck out like afterthoughts, but not this one. Teague made the roof flow smoothly into the spoiler, like it was all part of one wild idea that just worked. It gave the car a race-ready look while keeping it stylish. And there's more. That wide body look you see on custom sports cars today? Dick Teague was doing that in the early 1970s. The Javelin AMX had flared-out fenders that hugged the tires, giving the car a strong planted stance. It looked tough, it looked fearless, it looked fast, but most of all, it looked different, and that's exactly what Teague wanted. You see, Teague knew AMC didn't have millions of dollars to throw around. So instead of adding expensive parts or fancy materials, he focused on smart shapes. He used sharp lines and bold curves to give the car personality. It wasn't about copying anyone else. It was about being original. Even the front grille had a wild edge. Instead of a flat, boring face, the Javelin AMX had a wide-open mouth that seemed ready to roar. The headlights were tucked in just right, giving it a sly, fierce expression. Every angle of the car was made to make people stop, stare, and maybe feel a little jealous. This was more than a car. It said, "We might be small, but we're not backing down." And that's exactly how Teague worked. He wasn't the kind of designer who needed big teams or big budgets. He could turn small ideas into something unforgettable. And here's something that might blow your mind. Teague created this design during a time when most car companies were playing it safe. The flashy muscle car trend was starting to slow down. Gas prices were going up. Government rules were getting tighter. But instead of pulling back, Teague pushed forward. He didn't just want the Javelin AMX to fit in. He wanted it to stand out. And that's exactly what it did. Even now, more than 50 years later, the 1971 AMC Javelin AMX is still turning heads. Car fans love its bold shape and clever design, and many of them don't even know that behind that wild body was a man with one eye, a past in acting, and a future full of fearless ideas. When AMC finally disappeared in the late 1980s, most people forgot about the brand, but they didn't forget about the cars, and they definitely didn't forget about Dick Teague. From the Jeep Cherokee to the Gremlin to the AMX, Teague left behind a legacy of brave, creative, and unforgettable design. But the 1971 Javelin AMX, that was one of his boldest moves. Every curve, every flare, every wide-body line told the world that design didn't need to be expensive, it just needed vision. And Dick Teague had plenty of that. Number 6, the AMX badge was originally for a two-seater. Here's a secret that might surprise even the biggest car fans. The bold AMX badge on the 1971 AMC Javelin AMX was never meant for a four-seat muscle car. It actually started on something very different, a tiny two-seat sports car that most people have forgotten. Let's rewind a little. Back in the late 1960s, American Motors Corporation wanted to build a car that was sporty, fast, and different. Most American muscle cars had 4 seats, big bodies, and were built for showing off as much as speeding up. But AMC had a strange idea. What if they made a car with only 2 seats, no back seat, just the driver, the passenger, and the road? So in the year 1968, the AMX was born. This first AMX wasn't just a smaller version of the Javelin. It was its own car. In fact, it was the only American-made 2-seat car at the time that wasn't a Corvette. And it had something even the Corvette didn't, a full steel body. That made the AMX the first steel-bodied 2-seat car in America since the old 1957 Ford Thunderbird. Because it didn't need a back seat, the AMX had a much shorter wheelbase and overall length than the Javelin. This made it lighter, quicker, and sharper in corners. It was built only with V8 engines, no small slow engines here, and it skipped the cheaper 3-speed manual transmission option that Javelins had. The AMX meant business, and here's the twist. Even though it looked a lot like the Javelin on the outside, it was sold as a totally separate car. From 1968 to 1970, AMC had 2 muscle machines sitting side by side in showrooms, the 4-seat Javelin and the 2-seat AMX. But then came a problem. People didn't love the idea of a 2-seat car from a brand known for family wagons and budget rides. Sales of the AMX were low. After just 3 years, AMC pulled the plug. They stopped making the 2-seater altogether in the year 1970. It was the end of a bold little experiment. But AMC didn't want to let go of the AMX name completely. It sounded cool, it had built a small fan base, and it stood for speed. So in the year 1971, AMC made a big decision. Instead of making the AMX a separate car, they would turn it into a performance package on the Javelin. That's right, the AMX badge was moved from its own little 2-seater and slapped on to the side of a full-sized 4-seat muscle car. The new Javelin AMX got flashy upgrades. It wore a Ram Air fiberglass hood. It had real front and rear spoilers, not just for looks, but for better handling. It had a tough, race-ready stance. And of course, it still had the V8 power to back it up. But underneath all that power and shine, the truth was hiding in plain sight. This AMX was not the AMX people once knew. The 2-seater was gone. What remained was the badge, the name, and a memory of one of the shortest and most surprising muscle car experiments in American history. Number 7, Group 19 offered cheap power. You definitely didn't know this one, and it might have shaken you to the toes. There was a secret weapon hiding inside AMC dealerships, and it was called Group 19. It didn't look like much. It wasn't a car or an engine by itself, but if you knew the right part number, you could turn your 1971 AMC Javelin AMX into a fire-breathing street machine without breaking the bank. Let's dig into how this surprising program worked. Back in the late 1960s and early 1970s, car companies were battling to build the fastest, most powerful cars around. This was called the horsepower war, but AMC was smaller. They didn't have the same money or fancy racing departments, so what did they do? They came up with a clever plan. Instead of building every performance part in their own factory, AMC worked with other smart companies to make special parts that could be sold and installed at any AMC dealership. This special parts list was put into a section of the AMC parts catalog called Group 19. That's where the name came from. Now here's the shocking part. These Group 19 parts gave regular people access to serious race car upgrades right from the dealership counter. That meant anyone could walk into a dealership and buy parts to make their Javelin AMX faster, meaner, and more track-ready. And since they had official AMC part numbers, these parts could even be used in certain types of racing where regular aftermarket parts weren't allowed. Let's take a closer look at what these parts were. You could start with a special Edelbrock R4B intake manifold. This part helped your engine breathe better and made it run stronger between 2,500 and 5,500 revolutions per minute. It was made for a Holley carburetor, and it even had a special notch, so racers could use a big 3-barrel version. Speaking of carburetors, Group 19 gave you options. You could pick a Holley 600, 780, or even 850 cubic feet per minute carb. These were big, hungry carbs made for high speed and quick acceleration. Some were even double pumpers, which gave extra fuel burst when you slammed the gas pedal. Then came the camshaft kit made by Crane. It came with everything you needed to swap the cam, lifters, springs, push rods, retainers, and more. The cam had a long duration and big overlap, which meant your car would sound super mean with a deep rumble. It didn't have great low-speed power, but once the engine got revving, it screamed. Next was the Mallory ignition system. This setup gave a stronger spark and better timing. It even had a toggle switch for a strip mode, which sent more voltage to the coil for racing. But you had to be careful, use it too much, and your ignition points could burn out. The headers were also a popular upgrade. These long metal tubes helped exhaust gases flow more freely, which gave your engine more power. Several companies made them, but Doug's headers were the most common. These worked way better than the stock exhaust manifolds that choked airflow. For better grip and launch, Group 19 offered different differential gear kits. You could pick from gear ratios like 3.73 or 4.10. These made your car much quicker off the line. If your car didn't come with torque links, you could add them. These were metal bars that helped keep the rear axle from bouncing or twisting under heavy acceleration. They made your car more stable and helped plant the power to the ground. You could even buy 15-inch by 8-inch American racing torque thrust wheels, perfect for muscle cars. There were fiberglass spoilers too, just like the ones used in real Trans Am races. And here's something most people never knew. Some super rare parts were also in Group 19, like 4-wheel disc brakes, heavy-duty crankshafts, and even a massive 8 1/2 quart oil pan. These were meant more for race teams than weekend drivers, but if you knew someone at the dealership, you could order them. When all these parts were installed, a regular Javelin AMX could become a beast. Some cars ran the quarter mile in under 13 seconds. That's fast, even by today's standards. But the sad part is AMC didn't promote Group 19 very well. Some dealers got excited, but others just saw AMC as the grandma's Rambler company. And if you didn't have the dealer install the parts, your warranty was void. Because of that, not many people used the program, and most of the records were lost when Chrysler bought AMC years later. Still, for those who knew the secret, Group 19 was a hidden treasure chest of speed, sitting quietly behind the parts counter, just waiting to be unlocked. Number 8, part of a historic auction event. In May of the year 2022, something very special happened at a huge car auction in Indiana. This event, called Meekham's Indy Auction, wasn't just any car show. It became a part of American car history. Among the shiny rows of classic vehicles, one group stood out, a collection of 17 cars from American Motors Corporation, or AMC. But here's the shocking twist. This wasn't just a random group of old cars. Hidden in that collection was a one-of-3 Bonneville Javelin. This was no ordinary Javelin. This was the very car that set a mind-blowing speed record of 161.733 miles per hour on the salty flats of Bonneville. It had been driven by none other than the famous speed racer Craig Breedlove. The car still looked brand new, and guess what? The odometer showed only 22 miles, and 19 of those miles were from the record run itself. Now, let's zoom in even closer. One of the stars of this collection was the 1971 AMC Javelin AMX, a muscle car loved by fans for its power and bold looks. When this car appeared at the auction, it wasn't just for sale, it was making history. That moment showed the world that the Javelin AMX wasn't forgotten. In fact, it was a treasure worth fighting for. Seeing a record-setting Javelin AMX roll across the auction block wasn't just cool, it reminded everyone that AMC once built cars bold enough to break speed records and rare enough to stop a room full of collectors in their tracks. Number 9, it has economy car roots. Would you believe that the powerful 1971 AMC Javelin AMX, with its roaring V8 engine and race-ready look, actually came from the humble roots of an economy car? It's true, and it's one of the most surprising things about this wild muscle machine. Back in the early 1960s, in its struggling era when it was time to create something fast and flashy, they looked at what they already had, the Rambler American. The Rambler American was a simple, no-frills car built for saving money and getting around town. It was small, light, and easy on gas. But in the hands of AMC's designers, it became something totally different. They took that economy car base and gave it a bold new look, a stronger body, and lots more power. By the time the Javelin AMX hit the road in 1971, it was nearly unrecognizable from its budget-friendly beginnings. It had muscle, style, and attitude. But under all that excitement, it still rode on the bones of a car built for everyday folks. Well, the Javelin AMX proves that sometimes greatness doesn't start fancy, it starts practical, then gets wild. Number 10. Smooth semi-fastback style was the only Javelin option. In the end, the 1971 AMC Javelin AMX did something no one else dared. It only came in one bold style. While big car companies were busy making lots of different versions of their cars, AMC had a different idea. They stuck with one powerful look that turned heads everywhere. Where? The smooth semi-fastback design. Now, what is a semi-fastback? Imagine the roof of the car sliding gently down to the back, like a roller coaster going downhill, but never dropping too fast. It wasn't as steep as a full fastback, but it gave the Javelin a sleek, racing-ready shape. This design wasn't just for looks, it helped the car slice through the wind better, which meant it could go faster and feel smoother on the road. AMC didn't have as much money, so they couldn't build many styles. But instead of seeing this as a problem, their designers got clever. They created a shape that looked just as wild and exciting as anything on the market, and then made it the only choice. That's right, if you bought a 1971 Javelin AMX, you were getting that smooth semi-fastback style whether you liked it or not. This bold move made the Javelin stand out in the crowd. No other muscle car looked quite like it. The roofline, the flow, the attitude, it was all built into that one shape. The 1971 AMC Javelin AMX was full of surprises, and now you know some of its wildest secrets. Which one shocked you the most? Drop a comment, hit that like button, and don't forget to subscribe for more untold car stories.